Hello friends, welcome back to my channel and a very special welcome if you're new. My name is Shelly, the creator behind the Vintage Hen and Chick, and in today's video I'm giving new life to thrifted finds with 3 unique upcycles using decoupage paper, a fun crackle technique, and Sweet Pickins milk paint. So if you love turning trash into treasure, you're in the right place. Now let's get creating. For project 1, I am taking this wood disc that I got at the Goodwill. I think it's a cutting board. And I also have this furniture foot. I think it's from a couch. I picked up a whole bunch of these at a garage sale. And so I'm going to attach the foot to the breadboard and we're going to make a riser. And for that, I'm going to be using my E6000 clear glue. This has a super strong hold and it's going to help this project hold up really well. So I'm just applying some E6000 to the furniture foot, and then I'm going to place the cutting board on top, and then I will set this aside for 24 hours to completely dry. And the E6000 is going to give you a super strong hold and it won't come apart. So my riser has dried for 24 hours. The 2 pieces are attached very securely, and now it's time to paint the riser. And for that, I'm going to be using milk paint, Sweet Pickins milk paint from the Bespoke collection in the color Antique Ironstone. And if you've never used milk paint before, it is a 1-to-1 mixture of milk paint, which is a powder, to water. So I used 2 scoops of powder and 2 scoops of warm water. I stirred it up for about 2 minutes just to get all the clumps to dissolve, and then I set it aside for about 10 minutes to thicken up. And you want your milk paint to be about the consistency of a melted milkshake. And so now I'm just going to give the riser 1 good coat of milk paint to start. I'll let it completely dry, and then I will add a 2nd coat after it's dried. So I'll continue to paint the riser with the milk paint, getting it in all those grooves, and then we will set it aside. I will add the 2nd coat, and then we'll come back and move on to the next step of the project. So I did give my riser 2 coats of the milk paint, and you can see that the base is already starting to chip, and I like this look. Now, I have used the milk paint on a project before in my home. I turned an old cedar chest into a coffee table, and I used these feet with milk paint on that. So I knew it was going to chip. If you don't like it that chippy, all you need to do is add some Sweet Pickins Extra Bond to your milk paint, which is a bonding agent, and it's going to create a better stick and less chipping. So I'm just using my Dixie Belle sanding sponge, and I'm sanding the entire riser, getting anything off that's going to chip off, and then I'm taking a paintbrush, an old paintbrush, and dusting off the excess dust. And once I have this done, then we'll move on to the next step. Now it's time to seal the riser, and for that I'm using Sweet Pickins Dark Oil Wax. The oil wax is my favorite product to use on anything that I use milk paint on. And so I'm just using a foam brush, and I'm giving it 1 good coat over the entire riser, just making sure that that oil wax gets into all the grooves and the crevices. And once I get the oil wax applied, I am going to set it aside for about 15 to 20 minutes. That gives that oil wax time to really absorb into that milk paint, and it's going to really bring out the crazing and the crackle and the chippiness of the riser. And it's also going to create a rock hard finish on your projects. The Sweet Pickins oil wax is a really great sealer because as it cures, it does create, like I said, a really rock hard protective surface over your projects. So my riser has set aside for about 15 minutes just to let that oil wax really absorb into that milk paint. And now I'm just taking a dry paper towel and rubbing off any excess oil wax on the entire riser. And you just want to do this, you just want to keep changing out your paper towel until it comes up clean and you've gotten all that oil wax off. So I'm going to continue to wipe the oil wax off the riser until my paper towel comes out clean and the project is dry. There's no wet residue left on the riser, and then this project is complete. The chippy finish with the Sweet Pickins milk paint turned out so beautiful. I really love how this looks, and I hope you do too. What color would you choose for a project like this? Let me know in the comments. For project 2, I have this framed corrugated metal that I picked up at the Goodwill. It was probably a Hobby Lobby piece at one time, but we're going to give it a makeover. And I'm going to start out by giving the corrugated metal a coat of the Sweet Pickins Crackle. And so I'm just going to take a brush and I'm going to go over all the areas where there's corrugated metal and apply just one layer of the Sweet Pickins Crackle, and then I'm going to let that dry completely. Our Crackle medium layer has dried, and I'm going to go over it with Dixie Belle's buttercream chalk paint, and I'm just going to do a light coat. I don't want full coverage, I don't want thick coverage, I don't even want the entire corrugated surface covered with paint. And so I'm going over the Crackle medium, and what's going to happen is the Crackle medium is going to create a crackle through the chalk paint. So you're going to start to see the corrugated metal come through in crackles through that chalk paint. And so I'm just going to lightly cover this corrugated metal area with the chalk paint, and you can already see the crackles starting to come through. So I'm going to finish covering the corrugated area with the buttercream, and then we're going to let that completely dry, let all those crackles develop, and then we'll move on to the next step. So my paint has dried, and look at that beautiful crackle finish on the frame. I think it turned out so awesome. And so now I'm going to be adding a piece of decoupage paper to this frame. And what I'm using is the Decoupage Queen Farm Fresh Eggs paper. And I'm just going to trim out the piece of paper around the edge, just cutting off the excess, how I want it to look on the frame. So I'm going to go around, cut off all the excess paper, and then we're going to apply the paper to the corrugated metal. My decoupage paper is cut to size, and now I'm going to decoupage it onto the corrugated metal frame. And for that, I'm using Dixie Belle Satin Finish Top Coat, which is my favorite decoupage medium. And I'm going to start with one side and work my way over to the next, just going section by section. So I'm going to lift up the one side, I'm going to apply a good layer of the satin finish top coat down. Then I'm going to take my mister bottle and mist the decoupage paper just to loosen up those fibers and to help make sure that I don't get any wrinkles or bubbles in my decoupage paper. And then I'm going to lay it down, and I'm going to start on one end, and because it's corrugated and wavy, I'm going to use my fingers to press the decoupage paper down inside those waves, making sure that I get it stuck good and well to the corrugated metal. Then I'm going to go over it with my brush, and now I'm going to keep going, applying an area of decoupage medium, misting my paper, and then laying my paper down, using my fingers to smooth it out, get it inside all of those grooves, and then taking my brush and using any extra decoupage medium that's on my brush to smooth it out. So I'll continue to work from side to side until my decoupage paper is completely adhered to my surface. So my chalk paint and my decoupage paper need to be sealed in, so I'm just going to continue to use my satin finish top coat to seal the decoupage paper and the chalk paint in on the entire project. And once that is done, this project is complete. I love how the Crackle gave this piece an authentic vintage vibe, and I hope you do too. Do you prefer an aged look or something more polished? Let me know in the comments. For project 3, I have this wood box. It looks like it's a homemade box. I picked it up at the Goodwill, and I'm going to give the inside and the ends of this box 2 coats of Dixie Belle Barn Red chalk paint. On the sides, I'm going to be doing a decoupage treatment, and I'm going to do a different color there. But so the entire inside and the 2 shorter ends, I'm going to give 2 coats of the Barn Red chalk paint. And then we'll set this aside, let it dry, and then we'll move on to doing the sides of the box. I did 2 coats of the Barn Red chalk paint to the insides and the ends. I let that completely dry, and now we're going to do the sides of the box. And for that, I'm going to be using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Fluff. And the reason I'm using the fluff on the sides is because I'm going to be doing decoupage on the sides. And whenever you decoupage something, it's good to have a lighter paint underneath your decoupage paper, because that's going to make your decoupage paper stand out more and be more vibrant. So I'm going to give just one coat of the fluff chalk paint to both sides of the box. And then I'll let that dry, and then we'll apply the decoupage paper. My paint has dried, and now it's time to apply the decoupage paper. And for this project, I am using the pattern Brick Wall by Decoupage Queen. And I'm just going to lay it down on my box and just kind of figure out where I want it to sit and what size I'm going to need. And I'm going to use my fingers to rub over the edges and make a crease so I know where to cut my paper. I'm going to cut it out to size, and then I'm going to start applying. And when I apply the decoupage paper, I am going to be using the Dixie Belle Satin Finish Top Coat. It's my favorite decoupage medium. And I'm going to start from one side and work my way to the next. And I'm going to lift up my paper, apply a good coat of the satin top coat, and I'm going to spritz my paper just to loosen up those fibers, and then lay it down and use my fingers to smooth it out, and then use the brush with whatever top coats on the brush to smooth it out. Make sure that there's no wrinkles or bubbles. And I have to tell you, I've been decoupaging for a long time, and Decoupage Queen is one of my very favorite decoupage papers. I never have an issue with wrinkles or bubbles, and it goes on beautifully every single time. So I'm going to continue to lay my top coat down, spritz my paper, smooth it out with my hand, and then use my brush to apply the extra top coat over the project. And I'm going to continue to do the other side of the box and then let this completely dry. My decoupage paper has completely dried, and now I'm going to take my finger sander with some 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to sand in a downward motion around the outside edge of the box to remove any of that excess decoupage paper. This works really nice for getting a nice clean edge. One tip though, you want to make sure that your decoupage paper is completely dry before you do this, otherwise you will risk tearing your paper. And then I'm also going to take my finger sander, and I'm just going to lightly distress the edges of the box, around the edges and the corners. I like a lightly distressed look. If you don't like the distressed look, you can completely skip this step. So I'm just going to go around the edges and the corners and distress it back a little bit so I can see that wood showing through. So I wanted to create the illusion of some texture and some more grunge to my box. And so I'm going to be using a new to me technique that I recently learned from Connie at the Painted Photographer. And I will link her channel in the description box below. Definitely go check her out. She does some amazing projects. And so I'm going to be using Dixie Belle's chocolate chalk paint and this plastic spatula, and I'm going to be taking a popsicle stick and adding some of my paint to the back of my spatula. And then I'm just going to rub the spatula over the end of the box, over the outside edge and the inside of the end, and also on the top rim of the box. And I love the look that it's giving my box. It's creating an illusion of some texture, and it's grunging it up some. So I'm going to continue to do this technique over the top edge of my box and both ends, and then we'll let it completely dry, and then we'll move on to the final step in this project. All my paint has completely dried, and now I'm just going to take my Dixie Belle satin top coat and I'm going to seal the decoupaged areas of the box. The rest of the box I'm going to do a different sealing process, but I want to make sure that my decoupaged paper is completely sealed in, and just to make sure that everything is down and there's no loose corners. So I'm just going to give one good coat over both sides of the box where I have the decoupage paper, and then we'll let that completely dry, and then we'll move on to the final sealing process of this project. My decoupaged areas are sealed and completely dried, and now it's time to seal the rest of the box. And for that, I am using Sweet Pickins dark oil wax, and I'm going to apply that over the entire box except for the decoupaged areas. I'm just using my sponge brush, applying a good coat over the painted surfaces, and then I'm going to set the box aside for about 15 to 20 minutes to really let that oil wax absorb into the paint. And then once it's set aside for about 15 to 20 minutes, then we'll come back and start wiping off the excess oil wax, and then this project will be completed. I let my box set aside with the oil wax on it for about 20 minutes. And now I'm just going to take a dry paper towel and wipe off all of the excess oil wax. And I'm just going to keep changing out the paper towel until all the excess wax is removed from the box. And then this project will be complete. This box got a whole new look with decoupage paper, and I love how it turned out, and I hope you do too. What do you think? Would you use a bold pattern like this, or would you go for something more subtle? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and if you love these projects, all the products I used and more are available at my booth and on my website, thevintagehenandchick.com. I'll be back next week with more fun projects, so be sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss it. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.